Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast. I'm your host, Dave West, CEO here at Scrum.org. Today's podcast, it's a very appropriately themed one. It's focused on AI and Scrum, particularly in the use of LLMs and how that's changing both the way people work, but the work they actually do. So a really interesting topic. And I'm fortunate that I'm not going to be talking about this on my own. I'm very fortunate to have Jay Rahman, a PST and consultant based in Dubai, and Darrell Fernandes, IT executive extraordinaire, and actively actually working with Scrum.org on our use of AI. Welcome to the podcast, Jay and Darrell.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Dave.
Great. Huge topic to cover. So I guess, Jay, you and I have been talking a little bit about this when we've been bumping into each other around the world. So maybe you can start with what have you been seeing with the organizations you're working with when they try to use AI?
So certainly there's so now based in the Middle East after moving out from London, I think the challenges, interestingly enough, are pretty much the same across the board. So whether you're in the UK, Europe, Zurich, wherever, and out in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, what I'm seeing is that there's a sort of like a gold rush kind of sentiment where everyone and their dog, every man and their dog, every woman and their dog is going out there trying to implement something to do with AI. You know, whatever it is, let's try and get some AI going on. Let's find ways to leverage this new technology, this new way of doing stuff. Let's find a way to kind of really supercharge our results. And I think what's interesting about that is that although yes, AI can be a game-changing piece of technology, or it can be a game-changing for a firm if they use it well. I think what tends to happen is, and what I'm definitely seeing is that leaders tend to forget about the human element that powers AI, right? Because ultimately, you still need people deep in the mix. You still need people thinking and figuring out how best to use this new technology, how to integrate it into the firm, and how to do it in a way that change is pervasive and that it's not just for the select few. So, you know, the human element is very much alive, very much central to good, successful, and solid AI adoption. But that piece tends to be put to the sideline. You know, you're seeing a lot of this stuff, certainly in Europe and in the States, where Agile is dead and all this kind of stuff is dead. But I think nothing can be further from the truth. To use something well, I think is even more imperative, especially when it's moving at pace, for people to learn how to use it, how to adopt it, and how to adopt it to the context. So we're kind of using the term AI squared as a way of kind of introducing the idea that what you really need is you need agile intelligence first, and then you multiply that with the AI piece. And that's how you really get supercharged results. I think without the human element, without the consistent learning and the application, what you'll tend to find is a garbage in, garbage out approach. There's lots of firms that we've worked with, we do a lot of recovery work, and I can tell you there's a lot of firms that have implemented AI solutions and have found that actually what comes out the other end, although it should be stunning and amazing, hasn't achieved the mark.
So Darrell, so you said lots of things there, Jay, but Darrell, I'd like to bring you in and talk a little bit about, so I might be guilty of doing what you said, Jay. So this was, I don't know, a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, and LLMs had become incredibly popular. And so I'm like, I'm the CEO of Scrum.org. I need to do something with this technology. It looks really cool. And, I've got it, creating awesome graphics for my PowerPoints and, and rewriting my emails because they're so bad. But there must be something more. And then Darrell recently had just retired, and so I said to Darrell, do something with AI for Scrum.org. So, Darrell, is what Jay was saying basically sounded a bit like the situation we were in at Scrum.org. What does it resonate?
It resonates to a degree. I think there's a lot of disruption that comes with AI and understanding and taking the time to actually understand where the opportunities are to enhance your model, enhance your product, enhance your business with AI, and doing a little bit of that before you just jump in with a solution is really important. And I think as we've seen, right, AI can impact the way the team and the people operate. AI can impact the technology and the product that you operate with, and AI can impact how you think about your outcomes and your objectives. So AI really has a broad disruption opportunity, but it also has a broad acceleration opportunity. And I think the choice is really how much thinking do you do about where you want to harness that disruption to accelerate. And I think that's where Jay's kind of agile intelligence and artificial intelligence coming together becomes so valuable. You know, Jay, you hit on, is agile dead? And I couldn't agree more that agile is not dead as it relates to how we do work. The marketing aspect of agile as a transformative capability is certainly not being used as much, but agile is as critical, if not more critical now, with all these new accelerators coming at us as to how we do work more effectively.
Mm. So let's zoom in, as it were, and talk a little bit about the use of AI. And let's start with those teams, the ability to accelerate this agile intelligence that Jay, we've been trying for the last, what, 10, 12 years to prize out of these organizations. How does it help at that team level? What's some of your experiences, Jay, at the teams that you've seen applying this technology to help a team be more successful?
I think I think what I have seen in terms of some of the recoveries and turnarounds that we've done is that teams seem to think that actually now we don't need all the roles. What we need is we just need a bunch of smart developers, some cool technology, and we're off to the races. And what I found is that actually, like, in terms of in terms of some teams that have gone like super micro, that developers tend to get overwhelmed. Darrell used a great term in terms of the word accelerator, and I love that. I love that word because yes, you're accelerating technology, but are you also accelerating your learning? Probably not. And are you bringing together the rest of the organization so that they're all on the same journey with you, so that everyone gets an understanding of actually how powerful this tool set can be, but also how dangerous it can be as well? Because if you build stuff and it's hallucinating its way forward, it will confidently tell you that, yeah, actually this is the correct solution with full confidence, right? But actually it's completely wrong. And unless you bring in the right people to fact check, to make sure that actually what's being produced at pace, in an accelerated fashion, is correct, you tend to go down dark holes that you can't recover from. So that element I think is super important. I think one thing I will say is that what I've seen is I've seen some team sizes get impacted now. So instead of having, maybe you'd have a 10-person team, and what we always talk about having people in teams that have all the skills. Now what you tend to have is, or what you can do is, with maybe a senior developer or someone that really understands technology and understands the full tool set, they can deploy AI in different ways to be able to come up with technical solutions that would ordinarily have required another team member. All right. So we're definitely seeing that. So now you're not seeing such large teams, you're seeing smaller teams. What I will say though is that some of the key elements to maintaining good pace and building great products is ensuring the roles are still present. You still need developers, you still need product owners. All right. You still need, to some extent, someone playing the role of a scrum master. Without that, it's what tends to happen is that you get developers who are trying to do all three things, really struggling, right? Because now they've got to learn how to use AI to deliver, say, back-end solutions whilst writing some HTML code or Java code or PHP or whatever they've got. They've got to thread that all together. They've got to make sure that the engineering standards are still well met, because AI doesn't mean that you can just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You still have to be able to do good engineering, right? All that stuff has to happen, and engineers tend to be rightly focused on that. If they're also then doing the product ownership piece, and we've seen that happen a few times where, hey, we don't need product owners anymore. We've got AI, and we're going to move really, really quick. You tend to then see a role missing where there's not someone now thinking about what is it we're building at speed? Where are we taking it? How does the rest of the organization work with it? And what do we do first? Those sorts of things. A product owner, for example, is a super specialized skill set. It takes many years to be able to do that well, and it's absolutely critical to great product development. We've been talking about product development and actually product thinking in a firm for a while now, right? So what I do see happening is that although you get efficiency in development and all that kind of good stuff, you can get enhanced acceleration when it comes to product thinking, all that kind of good stuff too. But when it comes to like true sort of creativity and thinking about where the market may be going and gaps in the market and how we can use this kind of stuff, you still need the critical roles. So I'm seeing efficiency, but I'm also seeing some firms sort of forgetting about the other roles, which are absolutely important, and then going off piste.
Yeah, and I think so. Sort of to summarize that, yes, you can reduce the size of teams. It does increase productivity. There's a lot of studies out there at the moment that say 10. The average developer 10 to 20 times, a good developer 30 to 50 times, a junior developer about 5 to 10 times. So because
Yeah.
of that, you can reduce the team. But the important point, Jan, I just is that you still need a team, and that you need those, particularly the roles of product ownership and Scrum Mastery, have to be fulfilled. And it's really hard if you expect a team of 2 people to do all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you end up delivering stuff, but it's not necessarily of high value. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily the most effective use of the time of these 2 people, because you've got nobody looking at that a little bit more, Scrum Mastery, as it were. You'll end up with a situation where potentially you could end up not delivering value, not delivering innovation, not really exploiting the value that generative AI, the LLMs, that AI can provide. Darrell, do you feel the same thing?
I do, and I think this crosses nicely with where we're focusing our efforts at Scrum.org, which is if you look at the raw LLMs that are out there, and you can pick your favorite one, their ability to answer professional Scrum questions is not perfect, right? There are hallucinations, as Jay referred to. There are also just bad answers, right? And by blindly following it to fill a Scrum Master gap or a product owner gap, you can get yourself into trouble. So what we're trying to do, and what our intentions are, is to be able to enhance those models with Scrum specific content that will allow the answers to get better, so that the Scrum as the AI as a team member can really help accelerate all the competencies required to deliver value: the Scrum Master competency, the product owner competency, and the developer competency, with quality output from your models, so that those responsibilities, those accountabilities, can be fulfilled more efficiently, to Jay's point, but are still fulfilled. And we do need all of them, and we've seen that time and time again, that you can't shortchange the accountabilities, even as you optimize the people on the team.
Yeah, I just want to also, the other interesting thing is lean into something which I recently learned from our own work, is that introducing artificial intelligence is a quality issue, not a development issue. And it's so funny that the people that we get heavily involved doing it tend to be software developers, but ultimately you really need those quality professionals, people that can step back and go, hang on a minute, let's build, in our case, 100 questions, and let's test those 100 questions with the new improved model, with the data or without the data of professional Scrum, and see what it does, and then build those. And it's funny, telling a software engineer to do that could be incredibly challenging, whereas the quality professionals seem to have that. So it's interesting you bring that up. So I guess, I was recently at an event in Poland, and Craig Larman was presenting, awesome, amazing thought leader in our space, and he did a presentation all about LLMs, and he said that at the end of the day, cross-functional teams won't be cross-functional teams; they'll be cross-functional individuals. They won't need any specialist skills, because the generative AI will help them to be specialists in data, specialists in back end, specialists in databases, specialists in front end, specialists in without any trouble. Do you agree? Is that our future? The sort of cross-functional, we really will build these cross-functional people for the first time ever, and this technology will help that. Jay, have you seen that in any of the companies you've worked with?
I've seen. I think it's definitely. I absolutely believe it's where it's going. Right. I think the most successful, the most prevalent coding language in the world in the next 3 or 4 years is probably going to be English. Right. Which I know is a statement, right? But that's what it is. I think because you're getting to this stage now where you can have and LLMs and models, etc., are improving at a geometric pace. Every week, someone is coming out with something new and improved and far more fantastic and astonishing than the one before. So I think at some point you're going to have a scenario where human beings are going to be freed from the quote unquote mundane and be hopefully doing more creative tasks. So potentially, yeah, there's definitely something like that gonna happen. I think I'm actually hopeful. I think I don't know where it's going to take humanity and all that kind of good stuff. We're getting pretty deep now, but I can absolutely see that happening. Right, very much, very much like washing machines and TVs and all this kind of cool stuff have come along. To maybe not TVs, but definitely washing machines, right? Washing machines, dishwashers, all these sorts of things have come along to make our lives easier. And I think tomorrow with the self-driving cars and all this kind of stuff and the robots that are walking around doing our dishes and stuff for us and whatever else they're going to be doing, I think life is going to hopefully become a lot more creative and a lot more imaginative for human beings. I'm not sure what the timeline is going to be, but yeah, I think there's going to be a new industry popping up for sure. I think we're going to see talented prompt engineers turning up, people that are able to ask the right questions. Interestingly enough, though, you need people that although they can ask the right questions, are also savvy enough to be able to figure out when the machine is making mistakes and hallucinating, because an LLM can be frequently wrong but never in doubt, right? So we need to know when that thing is frequently wrong and misguiding us. But I'm pretty sure that at some point that's gonna. I mean, I'm quite hopeful. So that's
And
my.
that's a real, yeah, and you're always very optimistic on the world, and that's the reason why I love working with you, Jay. But the interesting thing is that if they are another team member, you kind of have to trust them to a certain level, and obviously testing becomes an incredibly important skill to help building that level of trust and that level of, you never can prove that everything is complete. You can prove things are wrong, you can't prove things are right with an LLM. So how do you what level of trust do you give them, or is it like you ultimately use them and test continuously? You don't trust them. You're sort of like you're naturally cynical of anything that comes out. Darrell, what's from your experience there, do you think?
Yeah. So I think you have to at this stage of maturity, and Jay's time horizon may be a little more optimistic on English being the coding language than mine, but I do think that is an inevitability that prompt engineering will morph into something that looks and feels a lot more like development. When it comes to verifying, I think right now as a team member, think of it as a junior team member, right? You've got a new person
Yeah.
on the team who's fairly junior in their career, doesn't have a lot of deep expertise. You're going to verify their architecture decisions. You're going to verify their market research. You're going to verify kind of their thinking and how they got there on any topic, because you want to help them grow, number one, but you want to also make sure that you understand where the direction is that they're headed and that it's based in a solid foundation. So I think today, with the maturity of the large language models that we see and the generally available ones at that, you have to treat them as that junior member of the team. It's a great add because they can go anywhere, right? They are true versatilists. We've been hunting as app dev leaders for versatilists for a generation now. Somebody who can truly do full stack engineering as well as go cross discipline. And this is the beginning of what that could look like as a team member supporting the whole journey, but it's a very immature and a very junior team member at that. So I think you have to think of it that way, as another team member, and make sure you're doing the appropriate verification, put the appropriate guardrails around it, so that you can build with time confidence on where it can really truly support you, and where you need to do more, think differently about how you're prompting, think differently about the input you're giving so that you get the appropriate output.
Which then leads you to the other thing that Jay you said, which is about innovation, creativity, and delivering business value. And so product ownership is becoming even more important then. Product management, product ownership, somebody that's really leading the bound of this solution somewhere is even more important. How does LLMs fit in the world of product management, product ownership, would you say? Jay first.
That's a big question. I think I think what we are seeing is that, and certainly what we're recommending is, I think there's a learning curve. We talked a bit about, Darrell very aptly mentioned the idea of acceleration, the technical acceleration. I think the one thing that we need to do is, as a product community, is to think about, well, how do we master this tech stack? How do we master these LLMs? Because they will, you know, product owners very much have to think about telling the future and think about, where is the firm going to be going? The firm of yesterday is not the firm of today, and it's definitely not going to be the firm of tomorrow, right? So the art and science of product ownership is thinking about, where is the market heading? What are the signals that we're seeing that we need to be taking some bets in this space? And how do we know what the right metrics and measurements are that tell us that we're either right or wrong, so that we can pivot or stay the course, right? So that kind of stuff, product owners tend to gain that skill over time. I think LLMs can give you. I love what Darrell said about being a junior team member. I think LLMs can give you that kind of junior team member support, to go off and find data and all that kind of good stuff. I haven't yet seen anything that can sort of creatively tell the future from an LLM perspective, and I don't know what that's going to look like when it comes to true creativity. And I think what you can do though is, you can use LLMs to kind of figure out what are the trends that we're seeing. You can probably measure those trends against, what do we think is going to continue versus, hey, what's going to die down. Every product will naturally get to a peak, and then it'll come down, and firms will need to pivot, right? So maybe what we can do is, we can see some agentic AIs going there, consistently monitoring the market, thinking about what works, what doesn't work, and what's not working, and so that we can pivot, as in terms of early signals. So I think product owners are going to have to think about how they use these things in a way that's not truly creative, but at first it's going to be an addition to their own skill set. I think that's how it's going to go initially.
Yeah, I
Darrell,
think from a personal point of view, Darrell, just before, I think personally, what I'm not a particularly good at math. I don't do statistics. Was possibly the most boring lesson at university, and I avoided it, if I possibly could. And so one of my weaknesses as a product leader has always been looking at the numbers. I've not really enjoyed it. Darrell loves looking at numbers, and I'll send them to him and say, "Can you look at those numbers for me?" Which is a great resource, but sometimes he's not available. He's at a Grateful Dead concert or something. I don't know. So but having a tool like ChatGPT in our case, and being able to throw those numbers into it and say, tell me the future. You have to, and actually it's funny, talk about English being a programming language, the amount of times I played with different prompts to get the answers that I was
right,
looking for, and
right.
ultimately found and discovered that, and I became much more adept at that. But I don't know, median, mean, the sort of like coefficient, whatever that means. I don't totally know what that is, but you could get all of this stuff out. And the most important thing is, it would contextualize it and give it to you in a way that you could actually use, which I thought was, when you got the right prompts, which was incredible. So I think the point that you raised, Jay, about basically giving that extra, product owners are always too busy. They've got three horrible groups of people hassling them all the time. They've got users, they've got the business, and they've got the dev teams, right? So you're always too busy. So this can at least ramp you up and give you that extra bit of acceleration, to use Darrell's term, as a product owner, whilst allowing us to make the decisions about, do we invest in this, do we invest in that, do we invest in something else? So I think that can really, really help. Darrell, what do you see
I,
from a product owner
I,
perspective?
I think there's three pieces to this. There's two pieces that come into what you were just saying, Dave, which are two very low barrier to entry places to start that we know teams generally have challenges today. One is, as a product owner, do you have a good definition of done? Right? It's so critical to have a good definition of done. You can easily drop a definition of done into a large language model, and it will help refine that for you to get better. And it's just such a good practice. The other one is in prioritization, because to your point, Dave, you just hit on it, right? What's important in the market. The whole prioritization game, because that product owner is in between three very demanding sets of individuals, the models can really help with prioritization and at least put some structure around the prioritization. So those are two really, to me, low barrier of entry places to start as a product owner. The third piece is a little deeper and requires a little more thinking. It requires a little more discipline, which is, could AI be a feature of my product, and what does that look like, and what value would it bring me? And I think that last question is so important, because I think there's a lot of energy in the disruptive space right now about, we have to have AI in our product, but do we actually have a value prop for our AI in our product? And it's ironic and interesting that AI can help you define what that value prop for AI could be in a product set, and to use it that way and help the product structure, product leadership, think through whether it's appropriate right now for AI to be a feature in their product or not, and what that could look like.
I think, Darrell, I think you nailed it there, right? I think what right now a lot of people are just thinking about operational efficiency in terms of AI, but I think you're quite right. I think where it's going to be going to, and certainly where we think it's going to go to, is you're going to have AI products. The AI piece is the product, right? And it can deliver something, and soon it's going to be a scenario of threading together these different AI products to then generate a result. Just like, kids, when they play computer games, I always see my kids playing computer games and stuff, and they're saying, "Oh, I've got this robot, it's doing this cool stuff. Oh, you should use this pack. If you use this gun and this thing and this combination, then you're going to get much better results." And I can definitely see, AI products that are the AI is the product, the way that it's been thinking, the way it's been structured, the way it's learning, and it's all this kind of cool stuff that generates the right results. So soon it's going to be a case of threading. Businesses are probably going to be threading together different products, different AI type products to generate
Right.
a result that will hopefully be mega profitable. Sorry, Dave. I just wanted to
Oh,
get.
no. I think you're exactly. I mean, this is the nature of technology in general, and AI isn't unique in this regard. What you tend to see is the use of technology increasing the operational effectiveness of existing businesses and existing business processes. We saw that with computers, we saw that with databases, we saw that with, and it's gone through this. And AI is a bit like the internet. Initially the internet was very much used for communication, for that, and then suddenly it became its own thing. And we'll see the same pattern around the use of AI, and who knows where that will go. If you could predict that, you would be a very successful human being, and obviously AI will help do some of that level of prediction, which makes it even more, it's sort of self-fulfilling almost. All right, so we are coming to the end of this podcast, but I do want to, we've been quite positive really today. There's been, Jay, you're always quite positive, which I appreciate. Obviously for Monday morning, I'm actually surprised how positive Darrell is, but that's obviously going well as well. This is but there's a, so uh, what's going wrong though? So I'd love to hear the sort of like the I don't want to say negative stories around AI, but maybe for our listeners, it'd be really interesting for them to hear what to worry about, what things that might be indicators that their AI journey is actually not going in the right direction. Jay, you work with a lot. I mean, your entire firm tends to be um, saving situations, or going in, as you call them, recovery. You're sort of like the recovery organization. So you must see a few organizations that have some challenges.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever we go into a firm, we look at three broad areas. We look at mission, management, and mechanics. So what does that mean? So if you just think for a pyramid, you've got the mission at the very top of the organization. What is it that we're trying to do? What is the strategy? What are the outcomes that we're trying to gain from an AI perspective? So we want to introduce this cool tool set, or this cool set of technology into our firm. What does that mean? And as a leader, what do I want from that? How do I work backwards from something like that? Because without that mission, what tends to happen is there's nothing for people to sort of latch onto. There's no direction. Okay. Um, the other thing is that in mission, what we tend to see is we tend to teach leadership teams that actually you have, regardless of your seniority, you're accountable for. We see two things. First of all, you're accountable for ensuring the success of the team, and we teach that from a Scrum.org perspective. We've been saying that for many, many years, right? As leaders, we're accountable for the success of the team. So if the teams are struggling, what are we doing to remove the friction? So that's very much part of our accountability. I think the other thing to that is so that there's a delivery piece to it, right? So the friction prevents delivery. What are we going to do to do that? The other bit about that is the change management. So how are we introducing this new cool technology into our organization? Have we thought about what it means? Have we thought about how to be able to introduce different levels of learning for different parts of the organization? A senior leader at CXO level is going to be using AI tool sets very differently to team members who are coding widgets. Okay. So there's that piece that we need to think about. So that's the mission element. Then there's the management piece. We are, Scrum.org has never said managers are evil or anything like that, right? And none of us have ever said that. What we tend to find is that good management is absolutely imperative for the smooth running of an organization. Great managers have to know how to rebuild teams if the team fragments or people disappear and all that kind of stuff. They have to know what the right approach is to keep the organization moving in the right direction. They have to be smart enough to be able to figure out when problems are coming up, get ahead of them and fix them and turn them around. Management is the glue between the mission and strategy and the execution piece. So how are we bringing our managers into the game? One of the things that we're seeing is, in the advent of Agile, one of the things that a big myth that was being propagated was that, hey, we don't need managers. And so managers would, become that frozen middle and sabotage results because they were like, well, look, if I bring this Agile stuff in, I'm going to lose my job, right? So how do we make sure that these other myths that come with AI are not propagated and we get ahead of them, right? Management teams need to think about using AI tool sets. If they're thinking about efficiency, how do they use it from a risk management perspective, as an example? We've seen some teams put in some cool bots that monitor delivery, that monitor some of the challenges that are coming up, that are looking out for weak signals that a team may be struggling. And that kind of intel pops up on a manager's dashboard and they're saying, hey, listen, maybe you want to go and have a look at Team Alpha. They're not doing so well at the moment. Let's see what we can do to help them, right? So those sorts of things and how managers think about and use AI from that perspective is super important. And then you go down to the mechanics. Mechanics, we talked about product ownership and all that cool stuff, making sure the roles are in place. All that stuff needs to happen and will not go away, I don't think. Not in the short term in any case. I think things like data, as an example, we've gone into firms and they're like, yeah, let's do AI, and they're using no code and cool stuff and they're building out stuff really, really fast. No code is a massive accelerator, right? But what's happened is that the firm hasn't thought through how its data is organized. It's not organized for for AI consumption. It's organized for how the firm works, right? So there's pieces around that we need to kind of think through, right? So mission, management, mechanics, those are the three things that we tend to think about when we're trying to align a firm top to bottom. And then, horizontally, how is the business engaged all the way through that? We need to make sure that whatever we're doing from an AI perspective, the change management perspective, the accountability perspective, the mechanics perspective, that business is engaged all the way through, and it's not seen as simply as a tech problem, right? Because that happens a lot when agility is first introduced into a firm. We always see, especially the ones that we're turning around, the business is like, oh yeah, the agile stuff, that's for the technical guys. That's not for us. We don't need to be agile. We're already agile. We hired you guys, right? No, that's not quite right. You need to learn new ways of behaving with your team members. You need to understand what product ownership means for you as the business. You guys are leading. So all of these sorts of things that we need to be thinking about, and making sure that we're not throwing out that human element as we start to introduce this new tech into our workforce. That's,
So ultimately,
that's a lot. I know. Sorry.
yeah, so I was just going to sort of summarize it as a lot. Yeah. So ultimately, what we're talking about is think of it as a holistic change to your organization, and organizations that just concentrate from a tech problem solution sort of point of view are leaving a lot of opportunity on the table, and maybe are spending a lot of time doing things that ultimately won't benefit the organization's long term success. Darrell, what do you see? I mean, similar
I
things.
Yeah, I think Jay summarized it very well. What I'll just put a wrapper around it, which is, are you being conscious about the disruption and converting that disruption to acceleration, right? Whether it's your executive suite, whether it's your product suite on the business side, whether it's your technical organization, it is disruptive. We can see that. And are you harnessing that disruption to your maximum output? And are you taking the time to put structure enough around that to be able to measure that you're getting the result that you intend to get?
Measurement. Yeah, the amount of times I've talked to organizations where they're implementing AI or any cool technology, but AI at the moment, and when you say, okay, so why are you doing this, and how do you know if it's been successful? And they go, yeah.
That that's the lever to pull when you think you're just getting thrown AI as a feature, is to ask that question: how are we going to measure success? Right? That's the easiest way to ensure you're on an acceleration path versus a disruption path.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for taking the time today to share with our listeners some of your insights and experience with AI. I've certainly learned a lot. If you liked what you heard, and I certainly did today, please subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, come back and listen to some more. I'm lucky enough to have a variety of guests talking about everything in the areas of professional Scrum and product thinking, and of course, Agile. So thanks for listening today. Thanks, everybody. Scrum on.